Well, I'm going to tell you that a lot of high-end new technology should be avoided at all costs. What you get for a little bit of convenience could actually be a lot of restrictions on your freedoms, and that's one of the major problems that we're running into in the future. That's going to be a lot more restrictions on your freedoms. I know this thing with Google cars can be good in some ways. I'm going to probably bring out a couple things that are good about it. It may be good for maybe driver assistance when you're driving long distances and you're tired and you're driving down a straight highway for 10 hours or more or whatever. They got all these different radar applications they got with these cars, blind side spot detection, lane change assistance, parking assistance, vision, self-parking, cross-traffic alert, adaptive cruise control, braking assistance, collision avoidance. A lot of times these things don't work perfect, but then again, they're going in the right direction. But the point is, it should always be where the driver is in control. But, the problem with this technology, though, there's a lot of other things that are in problem with this technology is actually, there's been alleged assassinations of people by having their car crash and reporters that were dropping dimes on, the military-industrial complex or different things that, people high up in government didn't like, and all of a sudden they had convenient car crashes. That's one of the problems with electronic cars. You could say they're safer, but then there's the other flip side to it also. I think though where they might have a good application is in delivery of materials. Maybe self-driving trucks, more or less like a train. Instead of it going down on the tracks, it's going down actual roadways and it's pre-programmed. That might be a freaking very good thing, especially if you have computerized vehicles whereby you can actually run them very close to each other and take advantage of the aerodynamics of being very close to the vehicle in front of you. You wouldn't be able to do that unless they were all intricately programmed with a computer, whereby maybe they could drive maybe 2 feet behind a truck in front of them, and use all kinds of radar detection, and all the braking systems would be linked up. Like if one brakes in the front, the trucks that are behind it immediately brake at the same time. It won't require the driver to react. So basically, you could take advantage of a lot of aerodynamics by having a fleet of trucks self-drive down the roadway. That could be something. Now, the thing is, though, I'd say the major media is really pushing this technology. What it's also implying, too, is that insurance may be a thing of the past, and car insurance. But one of the problems with that is, say, for instance, you do not decide to go into this new technology and decide to stay old school, and there's less and less people that are staying old school, and there's less and less people in the pooling that are paying for the car insurance. That would probably make your insurance rates go much, much higher. And more than likely it would. And that's what actually would force the issue on the remaining people. But I think there's a major danger in this, because considering everything is electronically controlled, that means the powers that be, the government, or whatever the hell you want to call it, could shut off transportation at any given time, or control it, or maybe even kill somebody that is figured to be undesirable, which has actually happened before. Because there's been times where, actually they proved this. Some of the late model Jeeps, they've actually hacked into them. They were able to disable the engine. They could do a little stuff too. I mean, they could turn up the radio, turn on the air conditioner, turn the wipers on, but also disable the engine, disable the brakes at low speed, even turn the steering wheel at low speed. And they have these hacker patches they could put in there. But then again, I don't think anything is hack proof. And the other side of it is, if it's a big company that's making, which it's always big companies that are making all this electronic equipment in cars, they can actually have backdoor entry systems for secret government agencies or whatever to get in there and control your vehicle and either cause you to crash in a freak accident, they would label it, or whatever. I think this has already happened with some of the reporters in the USA. So I say this is garbage technology. You don't want to use it. You don't want to use it. Actually, what I think I'm doing, and I'm not sure what I'm going to do exactly yet, because I might either go for CJ 5 or 7 Jeep, a four-wheel drive 70s pickup truck, or 1930s hot rod. I don't know what the hell I want to get. Something else maybe, but I'm not in a hurry. I got enough damn cars and I got a bike. But I'm not in a hurry on this deal. But something like this would actually be ideal with, basically modified, but it's got like the little fenders on it so it ain't kicking up a whole bunch of garbage, so you can be riding in New York, New Jersey areas in the places where they give you shit about not riding with fenders. Pretty much an open vehicle, open top, that would be perfect deal. Something like maybe like this with the running boards. That didn't have the running boards. The running boards are cool, but I would even go for more something that's rat, you know what I mean? This isn't a rat either. This is pretty, but very simple, and more I'm looking at this technology, and even where we went, even with technology with motor vehicles in the 50s and 60s, actually I think the real stuff that was around, that was the right stuff, was the stuff from the 30s that was modified, chopped, simplified. They pulled off all the heavy extra garbage that didn't belong on a vehicle, and they kept it simple as all hell. Now, actually, a lot of these damn hot rods from the 30s, they turn into like $100,000 gold-plated freaking things that they weren't like back in the 50s. People would buy these things in the 50s and 60s. They would be riding. This would be the hot rod. They wouldn't be going out and buying a brand new 57 Chevy or a brand new 65 Mustang later on or something like that. No. Those are the hot rods basically in the late 70s. But if you're talking about the hot rods in the late 50s and maybe in the early 60s, it was these 30s jobbers, man. That's what they were. They were the real deal. And, it's like when I don't know why they got so expensive and shit like that, but I can tell you one thing. Everything's gotten to be plastic, phony, and not real. The situation has become like people want to make this more convenient. And you know what? There's a flip side. There's a double-edged sword on all technology. And I say to hell with most technology. I think the only technology I really like is communications, where you can actually spread ideas. You can actually, look at the information that you need and catalog your information. Like, in other words, if you wanted to go look up all the information on this car, even though it was built back in the 30s, I can get off the, electronically on a CD-ROM, I can get every bit of information about every aspect of this car, from body dimensions to where, parts are manufactured and specifications on it, and what's available for suspension components, engines, drivetrain, and all that. And I definitely wouldn't even go anywhere near as complicated with this garbage with a blower on it. Maybe an AC, but that would be about it. Even if it's a cheapo AC that barely worked. Because, sometimes if it gets 100 degrees out and it's humid, man, that's a little bit too much sometimes, especially with a hot engine. But the thing is, the technology is actually a double-edged sword all the way. And I'm going to tell you something else. Just like a lot of people they press the buttons on a lot of people with guns, for instance. A lot of people think, like, oh, if they don't own a gun, they're like, oh God. But what I think is even going to happen in the future, they're going to actually start pushing stories about where a car that was driven by a person was used as a weapon, or it was used in a malice way to kill a pedestrian. But everybody knows today, like, pretty much, if you're walking down a sidewalk, not to worry about somebody on the street that's just going to deliberately hit their gas pedal, turn their wheel to the left or right, and run you over on purpose. It just doesn't happen, right? But I think in the future, as these things become more and more not as popular as they were, they're going to be starting pushing stories like that. And, it's always that fear tactic. It's almost like the same deal with, people who own guns and the people that don't own guns. It's almost like, they have no concept that, just like if you own a baseball bat, doesn't mean you're going to pick up a baseball bat and knock somebody over the head with it or something, or if you have a tire iron or pipe or whatever the hell it is, or whatever the hell else you got, you just don't do that kind of shit unless that's what you intend to do. And if you intend to do something, you just use whatever's available, right? That's exactly what it is. But, that's going to be one of the reasons that probably they'll restrict car ownership, too, is that the car could be used as a weapon of mass homicide or something shit like that. And whatever the hell it is. That'd be another deal because they'll come out with enough. They'll come out with enough propaganda, and the armchairs and the ones that just sit back and digest the freaking propaganda for the major media. They'll just buy right into it and they'll repeat their freaking lines, hook, line, and sinker, because that's 99% of the problem we got today. The armchairs freaking go along to get along, and I don't even want to call them liberals because I'm a liberal, actually. I think like free and open. I don't give a shit. I'm not a religious person like where I'm going to be saying you shouldn't do that. If you want to be a sinner, go right ahead. I don't give a shit. You know what I mean? I'm not here to freaking preach to your ass. But the point is, my philosophy is more like, do your own thing, do whatever the hell you want. If you ain't freaking screwing nobody else's up, not pissing on anybody else's party, who cares? You know what I mean? Do whatever the hell you want. It's your decision. You know what I mean? As I know, like they'll say, the social cost of driving a regular car is much higher than if we had everybody driving self-driving cars, because then they're all by a computer and they're much safer. It'll bring down the social cost. Yeah, everything's wrapped around social costs. Tell me another one, man. But if you want to, I don't think people are going to fight this shit in general, though, because the reason is that I can tell you most people are a freaking bunch of wimps, man. They won't. I was thinking about getting one of these damn things, but I'm looking at them like I'm saying, holy shit, freaking gold-plated, man. Back in the day, if somebody got some shit like this back in the late 50s, it wouldn't be this pretty or not. It would be all beat up and shit, but it might be $50, Today they're like tens of thousands of dollars, and it's like they're so pretty you don't even want to drive them, man. I'd be driving mine in a freaking everywhere you go, man. So maybe I'll get a 75 Dodge four-wheel drive truck, short bed or some shit. But yeah, the thing is you got to worry about is hackers, and I can tell you right now, don't go for this new technology. I mean, I'm kind of a techno buff. I mean, yeah, I got a decent smartphone. I got a bunch of laptop computers. I got a bunch of different types of software and shit like that. I mean, I got, stuff like that where I categorize information and look up information and try to, get information that's pertinent to today's times. But, that's good. I think it's good that we got the methods of communication out there to get the ideas out that we need to get out. But then again, to me, the Google Cars concept, I mean, I like the Google's trucks for transportation, maybe the Google Cars for like delivery systems, but to actually use this as your everyday driver, I think it's a bad concept, because what's going to happen is it's going to make it's going to affect the insurance industry. It's going to diminish the insurance industry pool, which is actually going to make the people that want to drive cars that are not controlled by computers, and they drive them on their own, they're going to be a much smaller insurance pool, which is going to make the insurance rates go much higher. And the other thing is, I always think that this is a potential way to control and even kill people. I mean, it's already been proven that hackers have been able to get into the systems and disable the brakes and disable the power, to the engine, and also even control the steering at low speeds. But then again, the more complicated they get, the more controllable they are. And I personally, I think it's all bullshit, to tell you the truth, man. I could care less about even power windows and power door locks and electronic keyless entry, remote start. I really don't give a shit about that. I mean, the heater's important. The AC, well, in Central Florida, it's fairly important because of the humidity. But it's not that important because I rarely use it. If I have a car where the top goes down, I don't hardly ever use it, man. I hardly ever use it even in Central Florida, the AC, believe it or not. Unless it's raining out and I can't put the top down. But, if you had a crank-out windshield or like vent windows, even if it's raining out and you got a little more ventilation and you're not getting too wet from the crank-out windshield, I mean, I could say, the hell with it. I don't need power steering. I have a Jeep that's manual steering. I used to have a 66 Dodge truck, 3/4 ton with manual steering, and I had no problem driving that. Um, that was a long time ago, but I remember driving that bitch around, no problem. Manual brakes, manual. So I mean, if I drove that around, a 3/4 ton Dodge truck, fully loaded, when I even want to put loaded up with like a cord of wood. If I drove that around with manual steering and manual brakes, I mean, I could drive this around with manual steering and manual brakes, no problem, man. Ain't no pussy. I can freaking handle it. So it's not a vagina car. Who gives a shit? It's my car. But yeah, I think I'm going to go for some shit like this actually in the future. But man, I'm looking for something simple, man. I don't want nothing that's too freaking pretty and chromed out with all the freaking latest gizmos and blowers and electric windows and stupid shit on it. As far as I'm concerned, it can be painted with a freaking roller. I can give a shit, man. Crinkle finish, and I'll paint some kind of ghost flames on a freaking bitch myself, man. I can give a shit. As long as it ain't gonna rust, and as long as it's reliable, I don't give a shit. But I can tell you, man. It's like we got so many vaginas out, man. The vaginas, I call they're man-ginas, they're males. They're actually people that just go along with this bullshit. They drive an SUV, they freaking, I don't know, they support all the freaking liberal causes and shit. But, I can't really say I don't support liberal causes, but then again, it's like, I don't really give a shit when anybody does, at all. I don't care at all. I mean, if there's a lesbian couple driving this thing and one dressed like a man and one dressed like a woman, I'm not going to put them down, man. Do what the hell you want, you know what I mean? If there's a couple trainees driving this car, man, I don't give a shit. Do what the fuck you want. I'm not freaking, ultra conservative. No way. I don't give a shit. But, I really come from the point and actually this is the true liberal, I come from the point is the less control they got and potential control they got over us, the better. The less control they got over us, the better, man. And what I'm saying is that's why you don't want to Google cars. Unless it's got like a big giant kill switch on it where everything can be manual. Nothing is drive-by wire. If there's a big freaking, throw a freaking big pole switch and a damn thing says all freaking electronic systems are now disabled and everything's manual, I can hang with that shit, but otherwise, screw it, man. It's as fake and phony as anything going, man. And they try to appeal to you with all the bullshit about why it's good, but then it's as plastic as plastic can be. And that's the problem, it's almost like, everything there is in the world, you got the hot chicks out there and they could be the biggest assholes in the world. You don't know what you're getting on the inside, You might take somebody who's like too skinny, too fat, or not too good looking, or whatever the hell it is, and they're 100 times better, I'd rather take the rat rod version of the chick versus the freaking hot rod, prettied up version who's an asshole. That's the way it goes. So, that's the way you should think on everything, Don't always look what's on the outside of the package, and don't always look what the sales pitch is. And, they're selling us, they're sales pitching us technology left and right. And, why it's good, why it's this, and why I can tell you a lot of reasons why it ain't good, and I'm not being negative. What I'm saying is I'm being positive about it, and the reason I'm being positive is because I'm looking from the standpoint of looking out for number one. And number one is the individual. The individual comes first, not the control freaks that think they know everything. And, a lot of these assholes that do this computer programming, man, they like to play God, man. And I'll tell you one thing. You don't want anything with a lot of excessive controls over you. Forget about that shit. So, anyway, stick with your rat rods or hot rods. To me, this would be like the perfect one right here, actually, to tell you the truth. I would like, it don't have to be that pretty or nothing, but that's nice, the black and the red. And small-ass fenders, still lightweight, convertible. Just the sides of the hood's freaking exposed, so if it freaking rains and snows or some shit, don't get down in the carburetor or something. Not bad. That's a good one right here. Got the turn signals up here, shit, whatever the hell those are. So, that would be a good ride, man, if I get something shit like that, but I don't know. I'm not in no hurry, but, I can tell you one thing, I ain't never getting a freaking Google car, man. Screw that shit. That's worse than a Prius.